So let's introduce our next speaker, Annelore Spieker. So Annelore is a teaching fellow at the School of Arts, University of Waikato, and a PhD candidate in the School of Arts in University of Waikato as well. Annelore has been teaching at the tertiary level since 2006, dedicating most of her teaching career to media and communication studies, having a particular interest in Latin America, cultural studies, post-colonialism, representations of culture, race, and ethnicity, pop culture, new methodological approach in media research, and research with children. Please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Annelore Spieker. Welcome, Annelore.
Kia ora, Marcos. Kia ora, everyone. Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite to everyone who is in Latin America. Atamarie here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Thank you so much, guys, for this invitation. I'll just start sharing my screen, and please let me know if you can hear me well, or if you want me to stop because something is wrong. I had a presentation last month that I thought no one was listening, so I stopped. I froze actually in the middle of the presentation. So just please let me know, okay? I'm all good with people saying, oh, just stop. So I just hide my floating panel controls here. So, kia ora. My name is Annelore Spieker. I come from Brazil. So hence I'm Latin American, and this is my main idea behind my research, which is have we asked the children and how children perceive or make sense of culture through global animated films. So one of my main research questions that I have, one of those, I don't know how many, but anyway, is how do children perceive ethnicities or ethnic groups and cultures represented in global animated films, but not only the films themselves, but the main characters. Mainly what people tell me when I tell them that what I'm researching is that, well, why are you researching that? Why do you have this research question? So I could go on up to Christmas, but this will be very boring for you guys, and no one wants to be stick here with me up to Christmas. So I'll just try to summarize the idea behind why I'm very interested on this, so many subtopics actually within that research question. And mainly one of the things that since I started my master's or my academic life, let's say, when it comes to research focusing on global animated movies, mainly what we have is a methodology that focuses on the interpretation of the movie itself from the researcher perspective, which is a specific kind of methodology. But overall, it focuses on gender representations. So there was a huge research when I started my research, a research gap regarding representations of culture. So what about culture? Because mainly when we think about Disney movies and Pixar movies and stuff like that, the research that comes up a lot is regarding the gender representations. So for me, it was like, okay, but what about the culture? And not only that, for me, I think because I was a student from Doutora Nilda Jacques and Ana Carolina Scostaghi, and I learned cultural studies and Latin American culture studies from them. For me, it was like, what about the audience? What about the children? You know, why people are not asking the children what they think? So have we asked the children, you know, what are their perceptions of those stories and from those characters? And not only that, I'm not that young. I wish I was, but I'm not. But when I was a child, mainly what we had was very European representations on the big screen, on big movies, global movies, you know, because this is a huge impact in terms of self-esteem. And this, I could go on, but it's not the focus for this presentation today. So what Disney did up to November 2016 was like, oh, okay, so we are very wide here, guys. Yes, yes. So I'll just give you a black princess, okay? So you just shut up, which is Tiana. And it was just the only one. And most of the movie, she's like a frog, which is not a really good representation of culture, eh? Anyway, Pocahontas was a huge mistake. Everyone knows that. And then they had Mulan, which is like, okay, we'll give you an Asian one. Then they had Jasmine, which is a Middle Eastern, let's say, princess. And then this little girl here in red on your left is Elena. Elena is not from she's from a TV series called Elena, and it's from Disney Channel. So and she's Latin American, so it's like she didn't have a big movie. I don't know, maybe because she's Latin America, I don't know. Anyway, we could go on talking about that, but that's not the focus for today. So the majority, as we can see here, are very European ethnic groups represented. And the other ones, they're very like, yeah, not just one of them, and very wrongly made. And for me, when I was a child, I remember thinking, oh, those guys, I don't connect with them. I don't identify with them. So when I saw myself as a mom, I started to worry about that because I have two girls. And in Brazil, Disney is huge. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I just try to prevent them to have contact with Disney, to be honest. However, in 2016, November 2016, I was with my oldest daughter. She was almost 4 at the time. And we were walking on the shopping mall. And she saw this girl on your left, which is Moana. And I will never forget. My daughter, she stopped. She looked at that display, which is what was like a real size display. And she said to me, Mommy, look, she's like me. I think she's me. And if you meet my daughter, you would say that they resemble each other, to be honest. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that changed my mind, like that was a turning point for me to think, okay, so what is going on here? And with time in Brazil, in Latin America, Moana started to be like a huge success. People were freaking out in a good way, like dressing up as Moana, birthday parties, theme as Moana. I still have friends that they are living here in New Zealand and they are from a Brazilian background that they do have Moana as their birthday parties. And also I was just like, oh my gosh, so people are like identifying themselves with this, not only the film, sorry, but with the character. And just to give you an overall idea from Brazil, so the majority of our population in Brazil, it's represented by Black or brown. In Brazil, it's labeled as a race and not as ethnic group, as we have here in Aotearoa. So over 50% of our population is Black or brown. So this is huge. So if you think that we have over 50% of our population as Black or brown, and if you think that we have the majority of representations of huge main characters from global animated films, which they have a huge impact on the planet, and a lot in Brazil, as only being from a European background. And at that time, Frozen was already a huge hit and success. However, Frozen is very, very much European. For me, Frozen was just like more of the same. And then people started to think that, oh, okay, Moana resemble my family or something like that, resemble me. For me, that was a huge turning point. And then I started to make a little bit of research about New Zealand. So New Zealand is also multicultural. However, we do have here in Aotearoa mainly European numbers. I think this next census will show a little bit different numbers here. After COVID, I think we do have more Maori, Pacifica, Asian, and Middle Eastern, Latin American, African numbers. But it is multicultural. However, it's very much European, still here in Aotearoa. But in my perspective, Aotearoa New Zealand and Brazil, they have some frameworks that they are happening there and here, and they're still happening actually, which is like both have been colonized and they're still facing and having all the experience and all across the society as a product of the colonization. In Brazil, longer, in Aotearoa a little bit, 200, almost 200 years. Both have been over the process of the globalization. If you think about Padurai's escapes, both are very multicultural and much more. Also, geography resembles sometimes anyway. So not only that, when I did my research, I realized that Disney was doing something very different for the very first time because they were very criticized in the past. They created what they called Oceanic Trust. So what is that? It's a really fancy name for a group of people and experts that they hired from the South Pacific region, that they have roots in the South Pacific region, to, like a board of trustees, let's say, to guide them to create and to do the production of Moana. So because they were accused of cultural appropriation, they said, and they thought, oh, so let's hire people from that cultural background to help us to create the story. And if you think about Moana, if you watch the movie, and if you're not from that culture, there's so many cultures represented, actually. It's like it's a lot of cultures there, actually. It's not only one. It's very reliable, you know, like it's like they did a lot of research, actually. I'm not saying that it's okay, it's good. I'm just saying that it's different from the other ones. You can see, you can tell it's different. But not only that, as I was amazed that my own daughter was just like, one is like me. I was like, okay, so I need to see what children are saying that. And in my perception, because again, I studied in Brazil, my master mainly, the cultural mediations from Martin Barbeiro, for example, it's very important. It's not only the media itself that it has that huge impact as people might think to create knowledge in the audience's mind, but also where the audience is at the current time that they are connecting to that specific film or media project, for example. So it could be the school children attend to, the family they belong to, or the community that they have access and they engage with on a daily basis, which is like their friends, their neighbors, their classmates. So many things can make our knowledge change or have some specific perception of the world, and mainly through media as well. So how do we make sense of the media? Mainly from the cultural mediations or mediaciones culturales de Martin Barbeiro. Also, I have other theoretical framework, which is from Garcia Canclini, the hybrid cultures, cultural identities from Stuart Hall, globalization, as I was saying before. But this would be like a different presentation. I'll just focus on the cultural mediations for now, which is the night map. So Martin Barbeiro tells us that the cultural mediations is like a night map. So what is that? It's basically when we are thinking about the media, we don't have a specific idea or accurate idea what that means in a very specific way to say, okay, this is correct or incorrect. He doesn't want to see if it's correct or accurate. What does it mean? For example, if a child tells me that Moana is like her and she's from Brazil, it's not that she's wrong. It's her perception, that counts. And we need to dig further to understand, why does she have that perception? Where it's coming from? So that's mainly what I did in my research. I didn't talk only about Moana because it wouldn't be a very long research, let's say. So I'll just show you what I did. I had 2 sets of data collection, and I had one face-to-face and the other one was online. Why? Because we had COVID in between, actually. I don't have any other beautiful explanation, guys. That's the truth behind my research, actually. The focus was only to be always from day one face-to-face in schools. So I would bring children, I would bring the dolls and action figures. I created some games with the characters. So we would play, it would be like, let's say a focus group, okay? But would be, as we call, the methodology actually is play group with children. I can give you more about that afterwards. But anyway, but then COVID, came, and then I had to change everything into an online setting, which was one-on-one interviews. And I always had the parents as well. Not when I was collecting data from children, but I also interviewed the parents. And from the first set, I had interviews with the teachers, the principals as well. But mainly in a general sense, I had boys and girls. I didn't want to focus only on girls because sometimes boys want to, as it was volunteer, they could say, oh, I like Maui. And Maui was a huge success with boys as well. So I wanted to give them space as well. It was in English medium schools here in Aotearoa, from multiple ethnic groups, and from 5 to 12-year-olds as the age group. So what did we discuss? What did we had as a conversation, as a background? Of course, I had a huge set of questions with them, but mainly we talked about these 24 main characters from the 16 Disney and Pixar films. So questions such as, where do you think these ladies at the top come from? And then they would have some options. Is it from Aotearoa New Zealand, from the Pacific Islands, from Australia, from Europe? How do you think that people, they are not from your cultural background? So we would talk about their own daily life, the schools they attend, what did they do? So what did they learn about other cultures and stuff like that? So like the characters, they were the main idea, the main focus, but I was always thinking and asking them about what were around those ideas, those characters as well, and those perceptions, which is the cultural mediations, as Martin Barbeiro tells us. So just a little bit about who are the children. Mainly I had, of course, girls attending my research, and mainly from 6 and 7-year-old. And I believe, because this is a volunteer research, of course, I think children, the older, the less engaging they were with the topic, because I heard a boy telling me within the data collection, oh, this is a baby stuff. You told me it would be fun. I remember, like, he was criticizing me. I remember, oh, I'm so sorry, because this is Disney, and Disney usually targets younger children. But anyway, I had children of 12 years old as well. Anyway. And one of the things for me was very important is to understand for how long have they living here in Aotearoa. So mainly, as you can see here, at least 1 to 2 years already living here in Aotearoa, which brings us to 96.6% of the children living for 2+ years. Why? Because in my perception, the more you live in a specific place, the more you understand about the local culture and about yourself as well. And I had from multiple ethnic groups, just because this is a very interesting data. In my online data, I had almost half of my participants from Brazil, which is a specific part of my research that I will analyze to compare. So when it comes to Aotearoa, and these are lines or quotes from the children, these are not mine. What came up mostly was that Moana, she's from Aotearoa because she has a waka, and waka is a very specific term for a child to understand. So they didn't say that she has a boat, which would be like a general idea of what is a waka. Waka is a waka. A boat is a boat, but Moana has a waka. And why do they have this idea? Because they are living here in Aotearoa. They already understand that from the Maori culture, Pacifica culture, they call it waka and not boat. Because she's Maori. And when I would ask, but why she's Maori? Because, oh, I watched Moana in the Te Reo Maori language week at school, and we watched it in Te Reo. Therefore, in their mind, it's like she's Maori. So it's very simple for them, so that's their night map about the movie. Her necklace seems Maori, and also she dressed up in a way that resembles Maori. And these, as we can see here, is very physical or more tangible aspects of culture. And you can see people like her here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So you see people like her around. And then when it comes to Maui, I think almost all of the children, they said that he's from New Zealand, he's from Aotearoa, because he's Maori, of course he's Maori, like they were like, you don't know that? Like they were almost telling me that. Oh, so I'm pretty sure you can get those clothes around the country. That's one of the boys telling me. And I was like, okay, so where? I don't know, a lot of shops I haven't seen, but anyway, because of his tattoos. And this one is really interesting. It was quite a funny as well. He said, oh, he looks like my uncle. Maui's just like my uncle. And then they said the name of the uncle, and this is from a Maori boy telling me about that. But not only that, of course, as we had 24 characters and we discussed about all of them. This is just like what are the main characters that they were more connected to Aotearoa. Christoph, for example, why Christoph is from New Zealand? Because he looks like my dad. And I said, is it because of their skin color or just the hair color? And then they said, it's just people you see around. And this one is really good. He seems not to have an accent. We could go and dig further here, because what is a person that doesn't look to have an accent? And then they said, not like him. He looks Kiwi. For me, that was one of the most important quotes that I had from a child. And then I could go on because it's like, what about the landscape of the movie and the stories? And they said, well, this was a very huge surprise for me. Pixar Brave, for example, it resembles Aotearoa. It's in Aotearoa. It's not in Scotland, which is actually the story. Why? Oh, because of the mountains, because of the landscape. Merida loves being to nature like a Kiwi girl. So they were like comparing with themselves, with their own identity. I'm pretty sure it's New Zealand. It looks like New Zealand. The same of Disney Moana, beach, landscape, and Frozen, for example, for my surprise, which is very European. Most of the children, they said, I'm not sure about Frozen. And of course, I had my data collection in North Island, in the Waikato region and South Auckland region, okay? So just to give you, like, geographically speaking, where those children, they live. I'm not sure about Frozen. We don't have snow here, yeah, we do have, but only the ones that melt. That was very interesting, how they perceive geography here in New Zealand and from the movie. But what I think mainly what got me was that children would tell me, I see people like them, like the character A, B, C around me. So they are very much in contact with this multicultural background in their communities, in the school they attend, so I think New Zealand in this sense allows children to have contact with different cultures and to understand that. And they say, my best friend, she's from India. So I think she's like Jasmine, so they were making those connections. They also mentioned about Coco, Elena, Toy Story, and other ones. But I think just to summarize here, the main research findings that I have gathered so far is that children from different cultural backgrounds, apart from only Pakeha, apart from 100% being Pakeha, Pakeha is the European New Zealanders, just to give you a context, they were more likely to observe cultural differences, that they were beyond the physical features only, which means that they were more aware of the language. So they would tell me, oh, Moana is Maori because I heard that she was speaking in Tereu. I speak in Portuguese and Spanish because my father is from Argentina and I'm living here in New Zealand, speaking in English. So they have this sort of understanding, better understanding of multiplicity and multicultural and diversity, about accent as well, about food that they are showing in the story. And not only that, the schools they attend play a significant role on children's perceptions of culture. So if the school does the identity day, culture parade and stuff like that, the more the school does, the more aware of other cultures the child is. The children's peers make them understand and perceive the role as multicultural. As I was saying, my best friend, she's from India, I'm from Brazil, so I know that she eats on the lunchtime, she brings curry, and I bring pão de queijo, let's say, and we talk about that and we share, this enhances the child's perception of differences in culture and ethnicity and about their own identity. So overall, from my research, media was just considered as a tool for a language, for a specific topic. In what sense? For example, if I would ask a parent, if you want to teach about Aotearoa New Zealand, would you use Disney Moana? Not really. Maybe if I was moving to New Zealand, I would show my child about Disney Moana, but it's not something that tells us that that's exactly what you find in the Pacific Islands or in Aotearoa. So it was just like to start talking about something or to show that there is dubbed in te reo or something like that. But it's not that that's enough to make people understand exactly what Disney or Pixar try to portray via the characters and the film. So mainly that's my research. Yes, I'm happy to take questions. Kia ora, thank you so much. Obrigada, gracias.
Thank you, Annelore. I really appreciate your presentation. Very well articulated, and I think definitely you need to meet Dr. Robert Pulfrey so you can know a little more about the story of Maui, which is the object, part of his thesis. So you can see
Yes.
very, very different Maui story and how the whole story of Maui was, he called Bowdlerized, because he was like, when the church came here, they start to cut penis from sculptures and stuff. So
You're naughty. Maui was naughty, I see.
Yeah, and yeah, wow.
Different for the church.
I know, but if Robert can tell, and he is definitely a storyteller, if he tells the story of Maui,
nice.
will,
Hi, Robert.
I think, twice fascinated by Maui, like
cool.
We all are. We got so fascinated with Maui that in year 2 here we have a paper about Maui. The students write.
Kia ora.
Robert, Kia ora, Rob, do you want to say anything about?
Not a specific question as such, but thank you so much, Annelore, because it was so refreshing to hear it from the kids' perspective.
Yes.
I mean, we've attacked it from all sorts of different angles, but you've come up with a very original idea. I'm just sitting here laughing and cracking up, laughing at their responses, which are so innocent and so honest. And thank you for this brilliant research.
Kia ora, Robert, and nice to meet you. Yes, to be honest, I had cameras recording as I was collecting data. I needed to be, because it was so funny sometimes what I heard, that I needed to be like, my gosh, I'm researching. Like I cannot with the child and then show people that afterwards. But I needed to focus so much and breathe sometimes, but sometimes I couldn't. I just was like, okay, yeah, that's really funny, and just laugh with them. Yeah. And they're brilliant, like children, they're so smart. And we learned so much from them. I was just like, oh my gosh, where did you get this idea from? It is really funny, guys. Seriously, I always recommend researching with children. Yes.
So, Annelore, there is just one question on the chat, and I thought you still have some time to answer, perhaps quickly.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I didn't look at the chat.
Annelore, do you perceive difference in the perceptions of the children according to the country they came from? For instance, the sons of Brazilians, even the ones born in New Zealand, the perceptions might be different from children born in New Zealand from Kiwi or from any other family here? Does it make sense? It's just like because
Yeah.
some of the listeners, they don't understand the questions in Portuguese, and I was reminded that the question is also on the chat if you want to address it.
Yes, so thank you for your question. Yes, I think mainly, and this is something that I could see from the Brazilian children, that they would say, when there was a question that I asked them, does your family resemble any of these guys here? And they would see all the characters, and most of the Brazilian children, they would say Moana. And I was thinking that they would only explain to me that was because of physical features, let's say, because they have brown skin color, the hair is curly, you know. But it went so much beyond that. They said, my mom, she's just like Moana's mom. She worries about everything, you know. And then they started to tell me about what happens in their households, you know, like, and then my dad, he thinks that I'm going to do that and stuff like that. So the way that they portrayed the relationships in the movies, and the connections that they can see within the characters, it's also something that they can perceive and say, okay, this is very similar to my background. This is very similar to my family, to what I do and what I have at home, you know, like, so yeah, I think it was different in this sense, for sure.